welcome to the Anonymous Andrew Podcast. Life and the choices we make, the choices other people make. This podcast explores all things as they relate to dating and romantic relationships. Why we ignore, or choose to ignore, or miss the red flags. Red flags like gaslighting, cheating, lying, narcissistic behavior, deception, and so much more. Join me each week as we continue my journey into the modern dating world with my weekend rants, anonymous guest dating stories, and experts who share their wisdom so we can better navigate the dating terrain. If you are new to the show or have been with me from the beginning, hold on tight for the Anonymous Andrew experience. Greetings and welcome to the Anonymous Andrew Podcast, Life and the Choices We Make. And welcome to a weekend rant. This is July 5th, 6th, 7th, July 7th. Weekend after 4th of July. 4th of July weekend, I guess. Anyway, I am on here because I need to get something off my chest. And this is going to be one of the most vulnerable rants that I've done in a long time. I'm literally going to call myself out on this. So, yesterday I am food shopping. I'm at the grocery. So, just a quick update on the hip surgery. I'm basically off the cane. I'm kind of moving around. Even yesterday, I hit a few balls on the tennis court against my doctor's orders. He told me to wait 3 months, but I can't wait any longer. I have got to get out there and exercise. So my partner and I, we hit a few balls yesterday. Nothing aggressive, just stood at the baseline. Anyway, the point is, went food shopping, and you guys have heard me talk about this 100 times on this show about meeting women in the supermarket. And I have talked to experts up and down about how do you do that and what's the best approach and should I do that and yada, yada, yada. And all of them said, yeah, go for it. I mean, that's if you're going to meet somebody IRL in the real world, and that's one of the ways you can do it is at the supermarket. So I'm down one of the aisles and I look up and there is this most beautiful, stunning Latina. She was, and here's the problem, the twin sister of my ex. I could have sworn it was her. I had to triple look. But there were some differences, obviously. But she wore her hair the same way. She had the same body type. She was a Latina. And my jaw just dropped. And I do what I guess many men do, and what's gotten me in trouble in the past is I tend to stare. Like I'm mesmerized. And there was no doubt that she saw me gawking at her. But I quickly pulled myself together and moved on. And I went down to the next aisle. And I'm in that aisle and I'm look up and there she is again. Like, so is she following me or she's just going aisle to aisle like I'm doing? So now I'm starting to think, what do I do? What do I do? I'm really attracted to this woman. I don't know if she speaks English. I do speak some Spanish. I've been taking Spanish lessons for years, and I could probably hold the conversation if I had to. But under pressure, no. And under stress or under duress like that, I would fumble. So I just shot it down in my head. I said, dude, just keep going. Keep going. And I think also somewhere in my subconscious, the red flag that she looked too much like my ex would be a problem. Put that right out of my head. I said, nope. Even if you could strike up a conversation with her, and even if she was available, and even if she was interested, you'd be making a mistake, because you'd be going after her because she looks like your ex. I go down, I don't know, 2 more aisles, and I am now down in the dairy, or I don't know, in one of the cold sections, and I kid you not, I look up and there she is. And this time she's next to me. She's like pulling open the door to, I think it was like the freezer section, to right next to me. Now I'm like, to myself, I'm like, this is a big supermarket. There's 15 aisles. And I don't go aisle to aisle to aisle. I go to the aisles that I know. I've been shopping there for 20 years. I know where everything is. So I do have a shopping list on my phone, and I literally go off the list. So next thing on my list was, whatever, it was, I think, toilet bowl cleaner. And although I think I said I was in the freezer section. Ice cream. I was getting ice cream. What are the odds that this woman is now the 3rd time in the same aisles with me? Now, this could happen frequently. I'm sure I've gone down many aisles and run into the same people, but you don't notice that because you're not looking at them. You don't care. When you're shopping, you don't look at other people that often. At least I don't, unless I'm attracted to them. This is now the 3rd or maybe 4th time that she is in the same aisle as I am. So either it is a very peculiar coincidence that she's got the same shopping list or the same items that she needs and is in the same order that I have and is just or she saw me gawking at her and was interested and started to follow me. Now, part of this rant is going to be in a minute when you're going to hear what I'm going to say. But that's egotistical, thinking that this woman is following me throughout the supermarket, which would give me the confidence to take that as a cue, like a green flag, and say, hey, she's now following you. Do something. And I am telling you, I couldn't do anything. My brain locked up. I had all of these bombardment of thoughts of what if, how can I, what should I say? Do I approach her in English? Do I approach her in Spanish? What do I say first? I had no game. My self-confidence went right out the window, or right out the freezer section. Folks, being open and honest and vulnerable here, I kicked my ass all the way home. I checked out, got in my car, drove home, even thought of getting back in my car and driving back to the supermarket with the thought that she might still be there. By the way, she didn't have a cart, shopping cart. She was grabbing things, and so that told me that she was there to pick up a few items, and I didn't see a basket or a cart. So she's running around grabbing stuff. There was no way that she would still be there because she was obviously, and I did not see her at checkout. I looked down, there's 15 checkout aisles, I think. I didn't see her at any of them. So I don't know where she vanished to after I left her in that aisle. But anyway, bottom line is, even today, the next day, I am really pissed off at myself. There's no doubt in my mind now that this woman was putting herself in my path after it was obvious that I was staring at her the first time. The very first time I saw her, I looked her up and down like a creep. Like, if you had seen me doing that, you would have probably called me a creep. Like, you know what a woman, when you stare at a woman and she says to you, would you like to take a picture? It'll last longer. That's what I was doing. I couldn't take my eyes off her. Everything from how beautiful she was to how much she looked like my ex, and all sorts of wonderful thoughts were going through my head, except the one that would propel me to go talk to her. And after doing this podcast for almost 2 years now, and talking to all these dating coaches and psychiatrists and experts and authors, and everybody just says, hey, all you have to do is go up and say hello. That's all I had to do. I could have introduced myself. I could have asked her a question about an item. And when I really came down to it, when I got home last night, I really said, all right, I played out the scenario in the event that next week I run into her again, which is most unlikely. I think I have seen her before. Anyway, if I run into her next week, I am going to ask her in Spanish if she speaks English. But that's if I see her next weekend. And what are those odds that? So I'd have to go on Saturday at the same time, which was about 1 o'clock maybe. And that's assuming that she shops every Saturday at 1 o'clock. I don't know. I blew it. I lost a great opportunity. And then, of course, I wonder, I said, would I have been okay if she looked too much like my ex-girlfriend? Because that would have been triggers. That would have been problems. Would love your feedback on this, folks. If anybody has any thoughts, and if you want to blast me, let me have it. I deserve it. I know you guys listen, but I am not an expert. I bring on the experts, but this time I fucked up big time. I could have had, this summer is whizzing by, and because of the surgery, I haven't been getting out, but now I'm starting to get out. Playing tennis a little bit. Today I'm going to go take a bike ride. I'm starting to get back out there. I was at the boardwalk yesterday morning. If I'm going to start running into people during the summer at the beach or in and around town, and I run into people or women that I find attractive, I have got to find a fucking backbone, because I'm not on any dating apps, and I don't have any game or any plan. I'm still single, and I'm waiting for that magic moment to happen. Well, it fucking happened yesterday, and I fucking dropped the ball. Bad enough you beat yourself up after, like, the last relationship when I left. I was pissed off for months at myself for allowing that to happen to me. Now I'm getting pissed off that I can't fucking open my mouth and tell a fucking beautiful woman that I find her attractive and that I'd like to get her name and phone number. How fucking hard is that? Yesterday, while I was zipping around town, I was listening to another podcast. And this woman, so, you know what? It's called Ask Women Podcast. It's two women who have a podcast, and their demographic is men. So it's a podcast of women for men. Apparently, they coach men into helping women. God, I probably should call them. Yeah. They had a gentleman on my age, in his 60s. And he has some sort of a website about how to date younger women. And his whole interview was about, he's 60-something years old, and his girlfriend is 20 years old. And the interview was all about not just how he did that, but how he's coaching other men, and how women, young women, And he was talking young. He used the term 18 to 25 are secretly would secretly like to date an older man, but they will never admit that openly. It was a fascinating interview. He made it sound like women across the board in their 20s all have this older man complex, father complex. I don't think I agree with that. I think there are a handful or a select, or maybe 50%. I don't know. I was actually going to do a poll on Instagram or Facebook and see if any women listening in that age bracket, which I don't know if I have, would honestly answer a poll that if given the opportunity and you were attracted to an older man, would you date him? I'm only bringing this. I'm not looking for a 20-year-old. Let's just get that up front. I am not looking for somebody young. Younger than me, yes. Like I would love to date somebody 50, but that's my cutoff. In my opinion, the younger, they're just not developed yet. They're not mature. It would be simply eye candy, or the sex would be great, but I don't see how a 50 or 40 year separation in age would work. I just don't see it. So if I can get this poll together, I'm going to put a poll on. I just don't know if anybody would answer it honestly. If you want to check it out. The podcast is called Ask Women. I don't know what episode it is. It's one of the second to last episode, recent episode. On to another topic. I've noticed, and I think this happens every year, that many podcasts take the summer off. Several of my favorite shows that I listen to have wrapped up, like in June, and then they say, we'll see you in September. And I don't get that. I don't. Especially if you're running a business. Some of these podcasts are sponsored. What do you do without that money for the summer? Or maybe they're not, their podcast isn't their only source of income. I don't know. I go through the summer. This isn't a job for me. This is my passion. I like doing this. I get something out of it, like what I just talked about. Like I had a problem at the supermarket yesterday. I called myself out on it, and hopefully I will do something about it next time. But the point is that, can you imagine if I took the summer off? Not to mention, I'd lose half of you. I know I have a base, an audience base. I do. I see the numbers. I can see who's listening. I don't see your actual data, but I can see where in the world you live. Whatever. I'm not going to get into the analytics, but I know I have a core audience base. I was also thinking of starting an email list where you would get a weekly email from me. I'm still pondering that. That I don't think would work on this podcast. I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes. I may figure it out. Now, on my other podcast, the Cultimatum, the Cult podcast, which is doing extremely well. At this point, we're only 21 episodes in, and we have over 1,000 downloads. And that is insane. It's par for par with this podcast. It's probably doing better. If we at this rate, in a year, we'll probably be in the tens of thousands downloads. And that's okay. This podcast is what I'm doing here is therapy for me. The other one is helping cult survivors and getting the word out. And actually, I think I'm doing, I don't want to say God's work, but I think I'm doing a service, some sort of service to society. And anyway, I do have one review that's new. I do not think I read this to you last week because it's dated this week. So it comes from Janest. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The title is Engaging and Insightful. 5 stars. Anonymous Andrew is a compelling podcast that dives deep into the human experience. Andrew's approach to storytelling is raw and authentic, offering listeners a unique perspective on personal struggles and triumphs. Each episode is a journey of self-discovery filled with profound insights and relatable moments. Andrew's candidness and ability to connect with the audience makes this podcast stand out. Highly recommended for anyone seeking real stories and meaningful conversations. Wow. Thank you very much, Janest. You know, when you take a few minutes and write a thorough review like that, not only touches my heart, but it tells me that you guys are listening and you're getting what I'm trying to do here. There's another one. Yeah, this was dated a couple days ago. All right, this one I get 4 stars, which I don't get because the review is great. If you're going to write a great review, I don't know why I don't get 5 stars, but I'll take it. Listen, I ask for these, and I'm getting them. So, shut up, Andrew. This one is from a Jason Z. And, hey, by the way, when I read the names, it's public. Just go to my podcast page and you can see it. So I'm not divulging, private information. The title of this is a podcast you can have a beer with. 4 stars. Andrew is an average guy having above average conversations. From the moment I first heard his voice, I knew Andrew so well. He's got a real Joe the Plumber vibe, but that doesn't mean he's simple and lacks depth. Quite the opposite. He has a lot of interesting thoughts on a wide range of topics, and the way he talks to his guests, you can tell you're listening to a very special conversation. Definitely recommend. And yet I get 4 stars. So Jason, I'm curious why 4, not 5. But thank you, Jason. I can't complain. I got 4.7 rating. Last week it was 4.8. Now I'm back to 4.7. But I'm getting reviews. I have over 70 reviews. You know what? I don't know if I read this. Today's what, July 7th? I did a weekend rant. Andrew does an incredible job of addressing issues and unpacking situations that are difficult for everyone, but especially men. Great job and keep up the good work. Wow. So, guys, keep the reviews coming. I really appreciate them. And as always, if there's something I'm doing or you're not liking or I could do better or if you simply have a question, I'd like to hear from you. I'm not here to give advice. God knows I can't do that. I can't even give myself advice. But I'd like to hear from you. So shoot me an email. Just tell me you're listening and share some thoughts. Or, at some point I heard my favorite podcaster, Rory Uphold from Crimes of the Heart. She is one of them that took the summer off. And her last episode, she said something to the effect that when she comes back in September, she's not sure which direction she wants to take the podcast. That this will be season 3 or 4 coming up, I forget. And that the initial concept of her podcast was bringing you true crime stories, but crimes of the heart, romantic crimes, like what happened to me. And she does it in such a fashion where she presents the story and then has somebody like a comedian or a celebrity on to comment on the story and to give feedback. Very well done. And you guys know I love Rory. But she's come to an impasse. She's wondering if she should continue along the same vein she's been doing for the past couple of years. Rory, not that you listen to my podcast, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what's I'm your audience. I like what you're doing. I like to hear the Rory, you and I spoke a while back. You heard my story. And what drew me to your podcast and what your audience, is your style, the way you present romantic heartbreak. You do it in a very unique way. And while it's heartbreaking to hear what happens to some people, you bring a little levity to it and common sense and yada, yada, yada. So anyway, I'm going to be here all summer. I'm not going anywhere. If I was to ever take a break, it might be a week or two, and that would be as if I was going to go anywhere, like on a vacation. But since I just took 4 weeks off for my hip surgery, I don't have any vacation time. So unfortunately, I'll be stuck home for the next 6 months. I don't have, unless I take time off without pay. Okay, I think that's it. Let me wrap it up. Please, like I just said, drop me a review or drop me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Please check out Cultimatum, my other podcast, if you are interested in cults in any way, shape, or form. If you are a listener to both podcasts and you're a cult survivor, please let us know. Drop either Melody or I an email, and we'd love to hear from you. Maybe if you want to tell your story. And of course, as I end every episode, and this will never get old, folks, because I will never forget this, it's the red flags that you ignore in the beginning that will bring you down in the end. And I lived that horror story. Until next time, Anonymous Andrew. Ciao.